Hello and welcome to the program this week. I am Layo Olarinde. We begin in Chad, where citizens have been voting in the presidential election, the first in 3 decades. The election was originally scheduled for October 2022. However, it was postponed, sparking protests quashed by security forces. Now, this vote marks the Sahel region's first presidential election since a series of coups. At 7 a.m. local time, polling stations opened and 8.5 million registered voters are expected to cast their vote. Provisional results are due by the 21st of May and the final one in June. Well, there might be a runoff election if no candidate secures over 50% of the vote, and that is slated for June the 22nd. The main candidate in this election is General Mohamed Idris Deby. He's the transitional president running under the United Chad Coalition. He has pledged security, law enforcement and energy enhancements if he is in power. Well, Prime Minister Success Masra is among his 9 challengers and is seen as his biggest rival. According to reports, the start of the voting was marked by delays, with polls opening an hour behind schedule in some areas. And some opposition observers have also decried what they allege to be irregularities with the election. However, Chad's election is seen as a milestone for countries in West and Central Africa that have fallen under military rule since a spate of coups began in 2020. And over to Togo, the ruling Union for the Republic Party has won a sweeping majority in the country's legislative elections held in April. Provisional results published over the weekend by the Electoral Commission showed that the party had won 108 out of the 113 seats in Parliament. Well, voting took place against the backdrop of heightened political tension following the approval of a controversial new constitution and a series of crackdowns on opposition protests. Well, the results pave way now for President Faure Singbe to extend his 19-year rule under the new charter. This will allow him to take the newly created post of President of the Council of Ministers, and it's a role similar to Prime Minister that is automatically assumed by the leader of the majority party in Parliament. Well, opposition parties say this new post will allow him avoid term limits and extend his family's decades-long grip on power, even as long as the party continues winning most seats in the National Assembly. President Faure Singbe took control of Togo in 2005, and that was when his father died. Yasingbe Eyadema died after he ruled the country for almost 40 years. Well, let's move down to South Africa now. Former President Jacob Zuma's party says he will still attend a disciplinary hearing with the African National Congress on Tuesday. And this is despite the ruling party saying that that hearing has been cancelled. Well, last Thursday, Mr. Zuma was summoned by the ANC's National Disciplinary Committee over his decision to join the newly formed Umkhonto weSizwe MK party last December, of which he is now the leader, despite still being an ANC member. Now, the ANC had on Sunday announced it was postponing the meeting due to take place at its headquarters in Luthuli House in Johannesburg. However, an MK spokesperson says Mr. Zuma will be at the venue on Tuesday. Well, let's try and understand and get more on this story. Joining us now is our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg. Hello, Innocent.
Hello, colleague. It's always good to see you.
Well, how is Mr. Jacob Zuma supposed to attend this disciplinary hearing when the ANC is saying, you know, it has been cancelled, but his MK party says he will attend?
Yeah, indeed, like confusing times, I guess. You know, one commentator said that South Africa is actually a movie. You'll never know what you're going to see tomorrow in terms of our political landscape. Yeah, I guess the MK party has already planned for this particular hearing, where I guess they are going to take the opportunity to campaign outside Luthuli House. So that did not happen. So I guess they want to still continue to go to Luthuli House and really, campaign outside Luthuli House. And I guess I wonder why now? Because the ANC had ample time to basically call the NDC, discipline former President Jacob Zuma. But they took long time. Now, less than 3 weeks before the elections, they call him for a disciplinary hearing. I guess they're giving him more oxygen, and this really puts, the African National Congress in a very compromised position. I guess the Secretary General of the party, Fikile Mbalula, was right to basically say, listen, yeah, I don't think it's the right time to essentially, call him to come and to come for this hearing. I wonder who advised the ANC to basically call former President Jacob Zuma. Why now? That's the question we're asking ourselves, Layo.
So apart from what you've just mentioned, was there any reason, for cancelling the meeting?
Yeah, so the ANC Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, is speaking about fears and concerns of violence and possible vandalization of infrastructure. If you ask me, the concern holds because, well, we give credit where it's due. The ANC has been really proactive in this, that they decided not to go forward with this particular hearing, because you would know that sometimes when political party leaders or political parties or civil society groups go and register their dissatisfaction outside Luthuli House, there's normally clashes of police where there's violent incidents that normally take place. But I think also there's issues of opportunistic crimes that normally happens when these meetings happen, where people will just take advantage of the moment and loot shops, because there are people who smoke drugs, who are criminals, who just want to ride on anything. You would recall the July unrest. Not all the people, when former President Jacob Zuma was arrested, not all of them really were crying foul that they're supporting former President Jacob Zuma, but some of them were just criminals taking advantage of the moment. And also we heard from MK Party spokesperson Ntlamulo saying that he does not guarantee the safety of Umkhonto weSizwe party members and the ANC as well. So that just speaks to you that it is possible that we would have seen sins that are not kind to our eyes, Layo.
All right, Innocent. Now, help us understand. We know that, this disciplinary hearing is coming after Mr. Zuma was charged with contravening the ANC's party's constitution. He was suspended in January, but he remains a member of ANC, but now he's also the face of this new party, the MK party, which he is leading. How is this even possible?
Like I said in the beginning, it's quite confusing, to say the least. But I guess the Constitution of South Africa allows him to participate and vote for any political party that he wishes to. But now it clashes. It's a dichotomy between the constitution of the country and the constitution of the African National Congress, because we're speaking about freedom of association, where any political party that you join has its own constitution. In fact, here they're saying that he violated Section 25 of the ANC's constitution that bars members to participate in other political parties' activities. And I'm just paraphrasing here. So he violated that section. But the Constitution of South Africa really allows him to do so. But I guess because of the Constitution of the African National Congress, I guess they would it now clashes with that particular section of the Constitution of the African National Congress, which is quite confusing. You're right, Layo. But it does seem as though the ANC, if anything, they were going to expel him from the party, from where I'm sitting, because he really mentioned that he's not going to vote for the ANC of President Cyril Ramaphosa. He said that the ANC of President Ramaphosa is corrupt, and the vote were bought in Nazareth. So he does not believe in the leadership and the style of leadership of President Ramaphosa. And but again, like, it goes back to why now? Why are they doing this now? And if he remains a member of the African National Congress but vote for another political party, does it mean then that if Cyril Ramaphosa decide to resign or step down, does it mean that he's going to go back to the African National Congress? Or if that happens in his political party where someone says, listen, I remain a member of MK party, but I'm going to vote for a different party, will he allow that? So those are the questions that we ask ourselves. And for me, where I'm sitting, Layo, it does seem as though the former president is angry at the leadership of the African National Congress since his arrest. I guess he's been really vocal about some of the things that he's not happy about in the African National Congress. So it really remains to be seen whether or not they will still call the meeting for the president, former President Jacob Zuma, to come and account and state his case. But I guess because we're almost there, it's election time, I don't think they will really want to give him more oxygen, Layo.
Yeah, and that was just my final question to you. If that disciplinary hearing will still hold or not, well, it remains to be seen. Thank you so much, Innocent Samosa, our Channels TV correspondent in Johannesburg.
All right. Thank you, colleague.
Well, we're still in South Africa. An inquiry into a fire that killed 77 people in Joburg last year is blaming authorities for their negligence. The investigation has cast light on the gangs that seize abandoned public buildings to illegally rent them out in the Marshalltown area. Now, the fire that broke out in August 2023 in a district notorious for gunfire, murders, and sex trafficking of teenagers and drug dealers. Well, after months of investigation, a commission of inquiry into the deadly fire said that lives would have been saved and had preventive measures been taken, adding that the Johannesburg City Management and its respective emergency services units failed the people living in the Usindiso building, and most of them were foreign nationals. The authorities are also accused of failing to demolish the rundown building or collect the accumulating rubbish, and firefighters were accused of being slow to respond. Top Zimbabwean officials are in South Africa to drum up support for the country. Zimbabwe just concluded a two-day investment summit in Johannesburg. Now, this comes just weeks after the country launched its new currency to try to revive the struggling economy. The country's finance minister, Mthuli Mkube, who leads the delegation, says his country is open for business. Our correspondent has more.
Policymakers, investors and business leaders gathered for the 2024 Zimbabwe Investment Summit in Johannesburg to explore avenues for collaboration and investment in various sectors.
We need your support as investors to really keep pushing us up. We just need an extra $500 per person, we'll be there. Why? Because that level of income is also your market. That's exactly your opportunity for those who want to be doing business in Zimbabwe. I must really thank you.
By investing in the private sector, we can harness the entrepreneurial spirit and innovation prowess of African enterprises to drive inclusive and resilient economic development.
Corruption remains a significant barrier to structural transformation in many African nations. I had a chat with Zimbabwe's tourism minister, Barbara Rolzi, to discuss whether her department has strategies in place to combat corruption.
Okay, so, well, I'm a minister, and my boss, who's the president of Zimbabwe, Dr. Emmerson Damzo Mnangagwa, is very, very, very opposite of corruption. A minister himself, if you are involved in corruption or you are known to be one, you're fired right away, and the law should deal with you. And of course, we have officers in our system. And I can't totally deny that there could be corruption somewhere, but I should safely tell you that it could be things of the past. Right now, try to come to Zimbabwe. Things are so transparent. We're trying by all means, to eradicate corruption in the country.
Delegates are telling me that collaboration amongst African nations is vitally important.
The elders always like to say, alone you can go faster, but when we work together, you'll go far. Because now we share ideas, and when we work together, because all of us got different skills, and then from then our results, we'll be able to achieve them.
We have the ministers from different sectors, right in our midst, addressing us. There are so many questions and concerns that we had, and we had no answer to them. But today, with this platform, we managed to get all the answers that we've been looking for.
As conversations progress and agreements are reached, the question lingers: is Zimbabwe truly open for business? Your guess is as good as mine. From Kempton Park, Johannesburg, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
Now, over the weekend, Cyclone Hiia made landfall in Tanzania, coming on the heels of heavy rains and flooding in the country and even across the region. 3 people are known to have died and more than 100 others have been rescued. Although the cyclone's speed reduced as it approached the coastline, it still caused heavy rains and strong winds to the country's southern regions through Saturday. Now, reports say more than 20 sailors from Tanzania and Zanzibar were among those rescued after their boats drifted into Kenyan territorial waters. However, and sadly, one sailor was killed by the sea turbulence. Now, the other 80 people rescued were on Tanzania's Kilwa Island. A major power blackout brought on by the cyclone hit most of the country. Even ferry services between the commercial hub Dar es Salaam and Zanzibar were also suspended for safety reasons. Cyclone Hiia is reportedly the strongest tropical cyclone ever recorded in Tanzania, and as a result, neighboring Kenya is also on high alert following the devastation. Well, the UN Refugee Agency says heavy rains and flash floods continue to hit parts of East Africa, impacting thousands of people, including refugees in that region. In April, the UNHCR launched its first ever Climate Resilience Fund, which seeks to raise $100 million to support refugees, host communities, and the countries of origin hardest hit by the climate emergency, and also to promote refugees' inclusion into national and local climate action. Well, our next report highlights the challenges many victims face in Burundi, Tanzania and Kenya as a result of the intense weather. Apologize for the lack of audio in that report. Well, back here in Nigeria, many residents are still grappling with the aftermath of a devastating windstorm that ravaged the Aloshi community in Keana local government area of Nasarawa State. It has been a month since the disaster, and while some people have managed to rebuild their houses with the help of stakeholders, others are appealing to the government for assistance. In this next report, our correspondent Halima Gayam speaks with some of the survivors on their plight.
The people of Aloshi community are slowly recovering from their losses after a devastating windstorm incident. The sound of hammers and nails echoes through the streets of the hitherto despaired settlements as some affected persons have begun to repair their homes. Thanks to the support of stakeholders who donated cash and building materials. While some affected residents can afford to rebuild their houses after receiving zinc and cement support, others who cannot afford to do same still have their houses lying as rubble with blown-off roofs still open as the people continue the struggle to get their shelter restored before the rains set in heavily.
It's only God that has been giving enough things to human beings. But what we have been getting is not sufficient yet. But the Nema people came here last week to go and observe what is going on.
Zuera and Amina are widows who lost their husband about a year ago. Their house is among the affected. Though in receipt of zinc and cement, they are unable to begin repairs and have only found respite from the ripple effect of the storm. This tree, which was uprooted during the windstorm, is what is providing shelter for Zuera and her family during the day. At night, they sleep in this uncompleted house offered to them by their neighbor. No rains, they sleep. But when it rains, they stay up all night because the roof of this house is also affected by the windstorm. It is a near-hopeless situation for Zuera and her family of 9 who are appealing for government support.
The government to help us to repair our house because we don't have anybody and we are poor. We don't have anyone to help us. The government should help us with zinc and cement.
As the community continue to distribute relief items received so far, they eagerly anticipate a comprehensive response, hoping for a total turnaround in their recovery journey. Halima Gayam, Channels Television News.
At least 12 people, including children, have been killed in twin bomb blasts that hit 2 camps for displaced persons in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. According to government officials, the United Nations and an aid group, the explosions targeted the camps in Lac-Vert and Mugunga near the city of Goma, and that's the capital of North Kivu province. The UN says the attacks, in which at least 20 people were injured, were a flagrant violation of human rights and international humanitarian law and may also constitute a war crime. A resident in one of the camps said that many of the victims were sleeping in their tents when the area was attacked. The Congolese military and the United States are accusing the military in neighboring Rwanda and the M23 rebel group of being behind the attacks, but Rwanda has denied the accusations, terming it ridiculous. And in Ethiopia, Orthodox Christians are celebrating Easter at churches across the country. It's home to the largest Orthodox population outside Europe. Well, the people fasted for 55 days prior to Easter, abstaining from meat and animal products. On the eve of what is the country's most celebrated religious holiday, worshippers wearing traditional white clothing attended church services lasting into the early hours of the morning. At the Kidus Gabriel Church in the capital Addis Ababa, priests, deacons and worshippers marked the day together on Sunday. Now, during the Easter period, family members and friends also travel from faraway places to be with their loved ones. And while most Western churches observed Easter on the 31st of March, Eastern Orthodox churches follow the older Julian calendar, marking the holiday across the world on Sunday, May the 5th. And that's where we end Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.